This is Brother Yehowadah from the Three Hebrew Boys. My other brothers now got going, Shea Yashub and Brother Theophilus. But I want to say, Yashub has some podcasts that he does every Sabbath. Truth be told, and run till that truth. Check him out. You get a chance. It's a real good every Sabbath. I think around 3 o'clock, something like that. That him and a couple of other guys do on the phone. But it's a real nice show if you get a chance to check it out. What I want to do today is I want to go into some books. As a matter of fact, there's a little extra project that I'm going to do with all these books that relate to the Bible that Sunday ministers tell their churches not to read or not to go into. A lot of those books are like a light bulb to the Bible. It gives a finishing story to a lot of the Old and New Testament. I'm going to use the New Testament today. I'm going to go into that and show you out of a book. It's called Judah Trembles Under Rome. And you're going to see how this story relates to these books. Also, in 321 BC, there was a council at the Council of Nicaea when the decision was made that a lot of books that our people, when I say our, I'm talking about at that time, Judah, that was left in Rome, Judah and Benjamin. The 12 tribes of Israel were split starting in 721 BC. The only two tribes that were left were Benjamin and Judah. Today, we're called Negroes or African American, which is not a race. The African American are actually the Jews that was in Rome. A lot of this history was erased. A lot of it not only is not being told, but will not and will never be told. They always take our history and stop at Africa, but they never go past Africa. So a lot of you see a lot of camps, a lot of young brothers waking up and tell the truth of who we are. And a lot of these books shed light to show us who we are. They say these books are not canonical, if I'm not mistaken, but these books were written by our people. When I say our, I'm talking about Hebrew Israelites at that time, especially from the tribe of Judah. Not only to warn us at that time, but to warn us in the future and the time to come, which is basically now. Because right now we in what you call an awakening. A lot of us are wakening up. But a lot of these, there's so many books. I got a lot of them. And as I go through these books and I match them up with the biblical stories, I'm going to come and do a short video and prove to you how they match up with scripture. Now, if they match up, then it's worth reading and it's worth listening to. Today, I'm going to talk about Barabbas. If you remember, and I'm sure you do in your Sunday churches, Barabbas is always looked at as a thief. What we would call today a thug thief. Someone that just steals and robs. Because I remember when I was in a Sunday church, even in a Seventh Adventist church, for years I was with them, they still painted Barabbas as being a thief. That he would go and steal, like today, like in Chicago or LA, you see little black kids stealing, snatching women's purses, just a straight up thug. I'm going to show you that Barabbas was not the thief that Sunday ministers are saying he was. Barabbas was bold. He was more of like a Malcolm X. You hit me, I'm going to hit you back. You take such and such from me, I'm coming to get it back. Now, the laws were different back then in those days during Rome. But I want to go into this story. I'm going to go into Matthew 27. And I'm going to show you how they looked at Barabbas being just a thug. Barabbas was a Hebrew Israelite from the tribe of Judah. And I'm going to go into others that was like Barabbas before him. By the time it got to Barabbas, he just continued being more of a Malcolm X. I'll use that name. Because Rome looked at us different. But I'm gonna show you what Rome did and what they did. This is what they would not tell. This what it kills me when these Sunday churches they leave out so much detail. They don't even say what Barabbas stole, why he stole. They don't tell none of that. We're gonna go into it today in this book. Judah trembles under Rome. But let's go to Matthew 27, and let's start there. Matthew 27. I'm gonna start at verse 15. Yeah, I'll start at verse 15 because most of you know about the story of Barabbas and the time that Christ was going before the council. So I won't read all of it. Now at the feast, the governor was wont to release unto the people a prisoner. Wont is like a in his normal routine. Released unto the people a prisoner whom they would. And they had then a notable prisoner called Barabbas. Notable, like an obvious prisoner, someone that's ready to be tried. Therefore, when they were gathered together, Pilate said unto them, whom will ye that I release unto you? Barabbas or Jesus, which is called Christ? I don't like using this word Jesus because that wasn't Christ's name. And back then, the Israelites called him the Messiah. All the Hebrews used the name Messiah. They didn't even call him Christ. And they definitely didn't call him Jesus because there was no J. But I'll read it for your sake, and since it's printed in here. For he knew that for envy they had delivered him. When he was set down on the judgment seat, his wife sent unto him, saying, this is Pilate's wife, have thou nothing to do with that Jesus, that just man? For I have suffered many things this day, persuaded the multitude to destroy Jesus. See, they persuaded the people to give them Barabbas. Now we're going to go into here, we're going to go into this book, and I'm going to show you why they picked Barabbas. It was a different, what Barabbas was doing and what the Messiah was doing. Doing the same thing, but Barabbas was a little more of a Malcolm X doing it. Christ did not use a lot of violence. It's more of education because of the way the Essenes taught him throughout those years. The Messiah was not about violence, but Barabbas was. The governor answered and said unto them, whether of the twain will ye that I release unto you? Twain is two. Whether of the two? They said Barabbas. They still picking Barabbas. We're going to find out why. Pilate said unto them, what shall I do then with Jesus, which is called Christ? They said, why? What evil hath he done? You see, he's saying what evil, because even though the Messiah was preaching against the government, he was preaching against the Roman government also. So did John the Baptist. John the Baptist was on it. That's why they took his head, because of with his brother's wife. And John the Baptist was pointing that out. All that's in this book, but we're going to stick at Barabbas. What evil has he done? But they cried out the more, saying, let him be crucified. When Pilate saw that he could prevail nothing, but that rather a tumult was made, he took water and washed his hands before the multitude, saying, I am innocent of the blood of this just person. See ye to it. Then answered all the people and said, his blood be on us and our children. See, now, these were our people. These were black people, what we call today African American. These people back then were called Jews or Hebrew people, but they would call them Jews. In Greece, they were never allowed to call themselves Jews. They had to call themselves Grecians. But in Rome, a lot of them had to call themselves Romans, but there was some that were rebels, still considering themselves Jews. So when these people said that his blood, Chicago is the way it is, the Most High just threw his hands up, and we put an innocent man, and Christ, the Messiah, was the very last prophet. There would be no more prophets after him. So that tells you about this so-called Muhammad guy. Okay. But this explains how come all 3 years, when we went through slavery, then we went into the Jim Crow laws, even to this day, the only reason why it's not as bad as it was because it's every man for himself now. Do it thy will, I think they call it. I mean, you can't say nothing to gays. I mean, they taking over, and I'm totally against that. But you can't speak against them now because they're using the law from 1964 when Martin Luther King them was marching the Civil Rights Bill. This is what they're using. So it's like it was before the flood. So yeah. Now let's go from that's the tidbit on Barabbas. What I want to focus on was why they kept picking Barabbas. That's what I want to focus on. Now I'm gonna go into this book, which is Judah Trembles Under Rome. It gives it more detail, a lot more detail on Barabbas, and you will understand Barabbas better and kept choosing him. I'm on page 31, okay, the rise of the freedom fighters, okay. Rebellions became very common among the Judean people because of the greed, brutality, Uncle Thomas of the Herodian family, and the successive invasion of various Roman armies. I don't need to explain to you what an Uncle Tom is. And Herod was a white man, was an Edomite. I think he had 3 or 4 wives. One of them was black. One of them was an Israelite sister. And a lot of blacks, like you have today in America, you have some blacks that will fight for equality, but at the same time, they on Edom's side, and whatever Edom tells them to do, this is what they do. They do nothing in the ghettos to help it. They do nothing in the ghettos to clean it up, the streets. For example, you get a black mayor, okay, or city councilman or city councilwoman. By the time they finish their terms, the ghettos still look the same. You got a black president, but they still shooting us down. They was doing it even when Barack Obama was president. So nothing changes. Now, Obama is not an Israelite. He's not. He's from the seed of Ham, not Shem. So he's not considered Israelite. But you got a lot of white folks that say, well, because he's black, they think all black people are from Ham. See, so you'll get an argument out of that, but he's not Shem. He's a Hamite. Israel is from the seed of Shem. A Judean rebel leader by the name of Hezekiah, sometimes written in Ezekiel, organized a band of freedom fighters to oppose Roman intrusions into Judea. Now, in history, they teach you Rome was the most powerful military at that time. How they conquered other nations. You know, I look at that as another lie because the majority of the wars was against Jerusalem. Jerusalem is where we were as the 12 tribes of Israel. Now, even though the 10 tribes had already left in 721, Judah and Benjamin still occupy today. A lot of their wars was with, you can say, what we call African Americans today, all the black folks that was over, they tell the history to you today, they would say they was warned against other nations that had this strong army. No, they had weapons we didn't have. And that's why they kept taking down Judea. You'll see as I keep going. Roman intrusion into Judea in 46 BC. Okay, this is 46 BC. This is after Christ was already gone. Just 8 years earlier, the Roman proconsul, which is a military governor, Marcus Licinius Crassus, had at his command 100,000 Roman soldiers. His marching orders were to engage the Parthians. Parthians today are called Iranians. But he went out of his way and entered Jerusalem. Left. See, Pompey came and destroyed the temple that we had in Jerusalem. Okay, these are all our ancestors, what we call today African American. We had all that treasury gold because years before this. But the Romans kept coming, and stealing and stealing and stealing. Crassus took from the temple a golden bar and 2,000 talents, and all the golden vessels of the temple worth about another 8,000 talents. Altogether, Crassus took more than 10,000 pounds of gold and silver, worth millions of dollars. This amount did not include the annual taxes that the people paid to the Romans. See, even though we were in Jerusalem, in Israel, they were still making them black folks pay Roman taxes. Obviously, Hezekiah, the rebel leader, was well aware of the sacking of the temple by Crassus. Hezekiah, like that of Jesus, was a resident of Galilee, and most historical records reveal that the Galileans were the most fanatical rebels. You see, now it's saying rebel, but these were black people. We were fighting for our land in Israel, in Jerusalem. As they was coming in, we had people that would rise up, king or king of the Jews, but that's what we were. We were Jews. Okay, that's why I said it says here. Like the late Jesus, he was fighting back. He attacked Parthia and suffered a great defeat. Parthians executed Crassus. His legate, Crassus Longinus, returned to Syria with hardly 10,000 soldiers. Hezekiah, the rebel leader, and the Judeans rejoiced at the fall of Crassus. They were glad they killed him. However, the oppression from the Romans became rebels into slavery. These are Negroes. We went into slavery. 30,000 rebels that was trying to fight Crassus from invading and stealing. Okay? Hezekiah gathered his men together in Galilee. They attacked Roman and Herodian forces. They struck at their economic interests, plundered their arsenals, and took supplies from their caravan. This is Hezekiah, the rebel. He was trying to take back what they took from Judea by the Romans and Herod. This is what we were calling our own people that were willing to fight back, freedom fighters, who sought to restore their honor and country. Okay? Listen good here also. Okay, let me go to, I'm going to go to page 36. Parthians invaded Judea. Herod escaped to Rome, with the intention of obtaining the position of the head of state of Judea. Now, Judea is nothing but a bunch of black people, a bunch of Negroes. And here is Herod, an Edomite, that wants to be over Judea, like the governor or something like that. It's like Detroit having a black mayor, but when he fell and the city went down, they lost all that money, all them people. Now Detroit has a white mayor now. So now things are picking up and getting better. This is what they were doing in Judea. That's why they wanted he had a state in Judea. Judea was all Negroes, all Israelites. Within a short while, the Roman Senate proclaimed him king of Judea in 40 BC. See? Herod became king of Judea. That had nothing to do with that land. That land was Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But because we went against our God, Ahiah, we went against our God, the law, statutes, and commandments, the Most High decided to not only split us up, but we started losing our land. He started spreading us out. But these are the years when Judah was trying to fight back, year after year after year. Herod immediately hurried back to the Middle East, raised money and hired mercenaries, and persuaded General Mark Antony to send his subordinate, Herod, on the Judean throne to be Herod, waged war without mercy against King King Antagonist, and his supporters. Antagonist was a Judean Maccabee dynasty, the Maccabee brothers. That was years backed by the Parthian army as Herod assembled 2,000 people belonging to 5 towns in the area of Jericho and burned them alive. This is our people now, because they supported Antigonus with the support of Antony's legions and for Jerusalem. See, they still coming after our land, still taking us into being slaves. It's like we can't, because we stand against our God. And there's not no one God. There are many gods, but the God of all gods was the God that created the Hebrew Israelites. He created us different than all the rest of the people that the Most High created. He picked out the Hebrews to be separate and a light to the world. That's in the scripture. King Antagonist and his supporters fought a good fight, but they were no match for the well-organized, trained legions of Rome. The forces of Herod and the Romans captured the entire city and even slaughtered the priests as they stood sacrificing at the altar. So see, when they talk about Roman history, they never bring this stuff out. All the evil that they've done to Judea, and knowing that land was all Negroes, they never bring that out. Now check this out. All them rebel leaders, many would be messiahs, emerged in later years. But a lot of the rebel leaders that we had, the people were putting them as king of the Jews. It wasn't them themselves that was doing it. Let me see if I can find one guy. Simon the rebel king. There was another rebel leader by the name of Simon. He was once a slave of Herod. He too was a tall, handsome man with a robust body, that means built. No wonder people were attracted to him. Having a grandiose complex, he considered himself superior to other men because the prevailing disorder of the time he rose rapidly to a position of the leadership. In addition, he placed a diadem on his head and head to the Messiah when they got ready to crucify him. So leaders that were doing it to themselves in order people would consider that rebel leader king of the Jews. Okay. Uh, let me go back. These would be messiahs and kings with their aspiration, messiahs and kings of their aspiration for total freedom, transformed the Roman dream into a nightmare of rebellion, and Romans hunted down these rebels. See, they was tired of being attacked by the Romans coming over there stealing, putting them in slavery. These black folks were fighting back. Relentless fury. They was taking back what was stolen out of Judea. They wasn't just robbing people after they come home from work. That's the way they put it today. And didn't hesitate to move on them with rapid dynamic force. Such men were the following: Judas, Simon, Athrangus, John the Baptist. See, he was another rebel leader. They never say that. And John the Baptist had a large following. He was also fighting back the Romans, the Edomites. Jesus, but he was nonviolent. He didn't raise up a bunch of people and say, "Hey, all right, we got Texas. Let's go to San Antonio and ransack and take back what was here in Houston." Put it that way. Okay. Jesus, the Galilean. Barabbas. Barabbas, the Samaritan prophet. You see? That's why they kept picking. They said, "Give us Barabbas," because Barabbas would fight back. Barabbas had raised up people and went against Rome also. So what Barabbas was doing when he had his boys or his, I don't know, maybe 100, 200 people, he went into Rome, waged war, and was taking back what they took out of Judea. But the Sunday church is trying to make Barabbas seem like he's just a straight up thug. You see, this is what these books do. It sheds a light on the stories, because a lot of the stories in the Bible are unfinished, and it leaves a big question mark. Why? What? Who? Where? You know, and Sunday churches, that's why they just want you to listen. And these churches, the leaders get up there and they perform, they act a fool, and you leave out of that church with scripture. So you can see how they tie in with scriptures, and it's like a flashlight. Like a flashlight. And it wakes you up when you read the scriptures. So don't let people tell you, don't read such and such book, don't read that book. Let me tell you something. White folks, Middle Eastern, Chinese, they read everything they get their hand on. But when it comes to black folks, all of a sudden you want to tell us, don't read this book, don't read. No, that book is not canonical. You know, you're going to put laws on when black folks want to read something, because you know good and well we're going to wake up. So people, don't read. I'll be back again. Look, my little project